YouTube, what's good? Sanju, back at it again with another video. Today we are talking about Duet Night Abyss. This is going to be about the closed beta test that will be happening on February the 20th, as well as some campaign news, some character overviews, some weapon crafting overviews, the demon wedges system, which we now know is pretty much going to be the mod system. There's a lot of things coming to Duet Night Abyss. Now, first and foremost, let me just go ahead and get this out the way. Do not worry. Throne and Liberty content is not dead. However, the game is definitely not looking to be in a good state right now. I know that there's a lot of things coming out, but it's not dropping until March. And Duet Night Abyss is also a title that isn't probably coming out for the foreseeable future, seeing as this is only the closed beta test. However, I'm extremely excited about this game. In fact, I've been keeping an eye on this game since we saw the first preview a little over a year ago. And I'll be the first to tell you, Duet Night Abyss has a bright future, if done correctly. This is always going to be the case with games that are brand new, especially if they have seemingly gacha mechanics or anime mechanics to it. The very first thing that I'm always going to say is that if done correctly, it's going to have a bright future. And it seems like the development team over at Hero Games is taking the Warframe blueprint, which I think we all pretty much expected once we seen the first trailer. And that's huge because Warframe, I mean, by all points here, is pretty much the blueprint. And I believe that Duet Night Abyss might be the very definition of copy my homework and make it your own. And this is huge because having an anime Warframe game is going to be huge, but having Duet Night Abyss make its own lane and be known as Duet Night Abyss and not a Warframe clone is going to be even bigger. And as I've seen the Luno Spotlight, which is basically their dev stream, they really intend on making Duet Night Abyss its own Duet Night Abyss, not the Warframe clone. There's a lot of inspiration taken from Warframe and other games that have mod systems and bullet jump, but they've been able to take the inspiration and legitimately make it their own, which is huge for the game, and it's huge for just being in the gaming industry and not being known as, yay, we're just another Warframe clone that isn't gonna make it. Duet Night Abyss has a bright future, and I'll say this first and foremost: if they take the game and they listen to the community and the language barrier between the West and the East doesn't really get in the way, and they continue to improve on mechanics and consistently deliver content after launch, and listen again to the community and not the publisher, because that's a big one. Listen to your community, do not listen to your publisher. I get it, everybody wants money, but the money will come if you listen to the community. Legitimately, that's how it works. Look at Warframe. Look at the First Descendant. Money will come if you listen to the community. Don't bother with the publishing studios. They will set you up for failure every single time. We've seen it. And it looks like Hero Games fully understands this. So hopefully after the closed beta test and we start to get a full roadmap for Duet Night Abyss, again, the future looks bright. But we got a lot to dive into today, so let's go ahead and start off with the main storyline information. Now, as far as we know, which is a lot of information, just on the very first chapter, here's what we know so far. The main storyline is split into two arcs, exploring the world of duality, which is honestly a unique take on a campaign experience in my opinion. Now, remember to take this information with a grain of salt as the game is still in development, and although it is in beta, most of the content can still change. However, with that being said, the two arcs, as we know, are currently named the chapter of the Noctoyager and the chapter of Twilight. Now, for me, the names sound incredible, as it seems that per their description, you will be able to take on two separate storylines through two different protagonists, which is huge. Each protagonist will have their own identity, companions, and storyline, which to me means that this will be a very large main campaign with tons of hidden lore, overlapping secrets, and meaningful backstory. Now, as far as we know, the story will begin in a location called the Hyperborean Empire. Now, I get it, that is a mouthful. I'll say it again, the Hyperborean Empire. This portion of the campaign is the prologue, which for me I'm happy the game will actually launch with, because too many times have I seen devs dropping games that will throw you straight into a world with zero knowledge of what's even going on within the world itself. Now, in this prologue, you'll end up getting split from a longtime family member named Barry, and as a result of some of the events within the prologue, you'll end up in the Hyperborean Empire, now known as a fox hunter. Now, for us anime enjoyers, this is your typical hero journey. The protag falls from grace, the protag meets the antagonist and has to climb to glory to save the kingdom. However, these tropes are actually very popular because if they are done right, they will be done right. And it will garner a lot of attention from the public as well as the people who actually enjoy these kinds of tropes. And it will be a very good feel-good story for a lot of people. Now, the twist here, this is actually a huge twist, honestly, which I don't see being done in a lot of games, is that for the second campaign, the other protagonist actually lives in the Hyperborean Empire. Keep in mind, this is all within just the first chapter because each zone has its own campaign, essentially. This is just the first chapter of the main campaign, and it's being split between two protagonists. So they are doing a lot of work over there to make a two-part campaign for the first zone. This is huge. Now, again, I'll just go over that again. The twist here is that for the second campaign, the other protagonist is actually living within the Hyperborean Empire, and they serve in what's known as the 13th unit, tasked with capturing the protagonist from the other campaign. That's crazy. This is huge because what this will do is actually give us that classic hero and anti-hero perspective, which will give us tons of backstory and development on the kingdom from both perspectives, as playing someone wronged by the Empire and also as someone who's being used by the Empire. Now, before we move on to the character overview, it is also said that each zone, again, within the story will have zone-specific campaign missions that tie into the main campaign. And this is described by each zone that you enter having its own tone, which is huge for lore, again, backstory, and truly making each character feel unique and not just a bland side story fodder character. This is... Hey, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's very rare that I'm actually excited for a main campaign because in most cases, developers seem to have forgotten what it means to play a main campaign. They seem to have forgotten what it means to have a fully developed main campaign experience, and while I was watching the dev stream and kind of getting a full understanding of what they were trying to say, it seems like they have a full understanding of what it means to actually have a main campaign. Now, whether or not that campaign is going to be to your liking is purely up to your opinion. But at the end of the day, I think we can all agree that just from the first chapter, it sounds like they're putting a lot of effort into developing a full enriched campaign with tons of lore, backstories, and character descriptions to make sure that every single aspect of every character that you meet on top of every zone that you enter has its own enriched system where you can fully understand this is what this area is like, this is what the Hyperborean Empire like, this is what the Ice Lake is like, this is what this zone is like that is huge for bringing that immersion level to players, so that when they try to bring newer players into the game, they can fully explain, hey, this is what you're probably going to want to expect. This story was amazing, because there's a lot of casual people that genuinely enjoy main campaigns, and if the main campaign is cheeks, most people aren't going to stay to play the game, and it seems that they understand that, which is a good thing. Now, let's go ahead and get into the character overview. So, for the character overview, we have the first character named Psyche, or I guess it might be pronounced Psyche. Now, we've actually seen some preview gameplay of her from before, within the major trailer that they released a little over a year ago. However, within this dev video, we have a little more information on her. In the story mode, we'll eventually meet her within a city called Ice Lake, which I spoke on earlier, which resides within the Hyperborean Empire, which they basically soft confirmed that the Hyperborean Empire is more going to be a big zone that encompasses a lot of cities, or maybe one or two major cities, which is huge because this also means that based on the information that we received on the main campaign, there's most likely going to be a lot of side missions, zone missions, probably dungeons, because they did soft confirm that we are going to get dungeons. There's just going to be a lot of content within the zones to do and complete, which is huge for playability replayability and longevity. Also very good for character leveling because, believe it or not, a lot of this is probably going to contribute to character leveling, weapon leveling, etc., which that is huge. Now, for her first skill, which they are calling combat skills, her first ability allows her to surge forward, leaving a shadow of herself. Now, this is basically going to be her movement ability. I don't think every single character is going to have a movement based ability, but for her, she has a movement ability. They didn't actually give us the name of any of the abilities here. Well, no, they did give us the name of some abilities for a second character, but for her abilities, they haven't actually given us a name for it, which means that she's probably still under full development. But basically, her first ability again allows her to surge forward, leaving a shadow of herself in the last known location that seems to have a proximity explosion when enemies get close to it. Now, from what I've seen, this ability can be used up to 3 times before you cannot be able to use it again. And when we get to a system that I will be explaining later on in the video, it seems like you could juice these abilities a lot and probably have some pretty significant synergies with these abilities. But in addition to what I just spoke of with the explosion being a proximity explosion, this will also cause significant damage, and it will launch enemies that are caught within the explosion radius into the air. And again, it will act as her movement ability, allowing her to get out of dodgy situations, which means the ability is loaded. Because this is not only a movement ability, it's a damaging ability, it's a CC ability, which technically gives her a 2-fold movement ability, because you're not only CCing enemies, but you're also getting out of the way, and it acts as a main source of DPS outside of her weapons, which that's a very bloated ability, which means with the mod system that we'll be delving into later on in the video, this could possibly benefit from a lot of different mods, which means you could probably juice this ability to the moon. Now, her ultimate is actually the ability that we saw with the trailer. And this ultimate specifically is the one that allows her to take flight and cover terrain a lot faster than most of the other characters that I've seen so far. While her ultimate is active, she can basically become the anime AC-130, I'm not even kidding, and bomb the entire map with endless attacks from what I've seen so far. The attacks will lock onto targets within your line of sight and essentially fire heat-seeking bullets at the targets once fired. Now, I haven't seen any unique status effects being applied, but once we can get our hands on this character, I'll for sure be taking a deep dive on this character. Now, the second character is actually a 2-part character, and this character is known as Truffle and Filbert. Now, the ultimate for Truffle and Filbert is actually cool, not going to lie, because its simplicity is honestly what makes me think that this is going to be one of the most popular characters when the game really starts to take off. Now, for her ultimate, Truffle will summon Filbert and actually ride Filbert like he's a runaway train, I kid you not. While in the ultimate, you can use her combat skill to cause Filbert to charge forward in your preferred direction while running over everyone that's currently on that path. Now, while you're in the ultimate and not using the charge skill, you can use her basic attacks, otherwise known as regular attacks, which are unique to the ultimate, because the ultimate will actually convert Truffle. Keep in mind, Truffle is the girl that rides Filbert. It will cause her regular attacks to convert into a new regular attack called the Trotter's Charge. And while using this skill, Filbert will legit start backhanding all of the enemies, causing massive damage and launching them back a couple of meters, which allows Truffle and Filbert to have both a movement ultimate, a CC ultimate in 2 different forms, and a DPSing ultimate, which is pretty good. That's actually really good, because if it does good damage at base value, then again, when we get into the mod system later, you could juice this ability up to the moon. Now, they briefly went over the gameplay mechanics within the dev video as well, and to briefly go over the gameplay mechanics, let's talk about the Helix Leap. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. For all the Warframe players, we should know that this is the bullet jump, and I'm honestly here for it. This is what movement should look like. It's clean, it's fluid, it doesn't have some immersion breaking stamina bar, and best of all, you can scale buildings and use it without being locked out of it for some arbitrary cooldown window. This is how you take inspiration and make it your own. Kudos to Hero Games for this one, honestly, because it's very rare that developers want you to have a decent movement speed. They want you to be in the game as long as possible, but instead of creating content to give you replayability and keep you in the game for as long as possible, they would much rather make you as slow as God knows what and have you walking at a snail's pace to get from here to the blacksmith. And it seems like they are taking the route of, we're going to create a ton of content, we're going to immerse you in our story, we're going to come out with a lot of characters, a lot of weapons, which I'll get into in a little bit here, and by allowing you to have the Helix Leap and traverse the map, because again, I think these maps are going to be pretty big. We have the main story zone for chapter 1, just chapter 1, known as the Hyperborean Empire, which is going to have multiple cities in it, tons of side missions and main story quests. Then you have to visit a lot of vendors. There's going to be a lot of content that you're going to need to have maneuverability for, which makes the Helix Leap, honestly, the best movement skill to use outside of character-specific movement skills like the dash that you can get from Psyche or the ultimate dash that you can get from Truffle and Filbert. So I'm going to be honest with you, again, this is a genius move. They took inspiration from Warframe. They copy and pasted it over to Duet Night Abyss, but then they made it their own by allowing you to have the freedom of movement without the stamina bar, without locking you in place, allowing you to scale buildings. It's a genius move. Honestly, I can't even complain about it. Now, for the weapon mechanics, this is the part that everybody wants to talk about. So, according to the devs, you will be able to equip both a melee weapon and a ranged weapon at the same time, which means yes, we will have the ability to weapon swap freely, and it will be seemingly seamless weapon swap. This will also include a ton of build diversity and freedom of expression when playing certain playstyles. A huge factor is that within games like these, they are notorious for locking your character to the weapon that they are shown with in the artwork. However, within Duet Night Abyss, you'll have the freedom to use whatever you want regardless of the weapon class, which means Duet Night Abyss is going to have crazy skill and weapon combinations, which yet again, I mean, hey, you don't want to say it, but it sounds a lot like Warframe in the First Descendant, which is good. I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is just another Warframe clone, this is another First Descendant clone. No, this is Duet Night Abyss. They're doing things in their own way, but they're taking a lot of inspiration from these games that are essentially going to be the blueprint. Let's keep in mind, Warframe came out nearly 11 years ago, and they're still doing it big right now because they come out with endless content. They're about to have the Technosite Encore, which is coming out in March. I know because I play Warframe religiously at this point, but it's good to see other studios taking heed and saying, yo, I see what they're doing over there. I like what they're doing. I want to incorporate that into my own title, but make it my own. That's what you're supposed to do. And the best part about it is that it creates competition between both of these studios. If Duet Night Abyss blows up, then there's going to be a lot of competition between Warframe and Duet Night Abyss, which means more content for us players because those guys are going to continuously want to outdo each other. This is what it's all about, man. Competition and creativity, and they're doing it, and it's huge. Now, to also get back into the weapon mechanics, as I said, this also means that everyone can run the same character without having the same weapon. So again, the build diversity will be at an all-time high. Now, some of the weapon classes named are the spears, the scythes, the bows, the grenade launchers, and the assault rifles. It is unclear if these are all the weapons that we will receive when the game is fully launched, but it is clear that they have a vision on giving us essentially an armory of weapons, and I'm for sure going to use them. It is also worth saying that the game will feature multiple weapons in each class, which means each weapon will most likely be coming with its own stats, a perk or two, to keep the diversity from the other weapons consistent. Now, I bet you didn't think that a game that looked like this was going to come with weapon crafting. However, they are, and thank goodness that they are. You can craft weapons through collecting the blueprints, or you can get them through the retrace system, which I would probably assume is going to be a premium currency system, but it doesn't even sound like it because that doesn't sound like the premium currency at all. However, with weapon crafting, if we understand that they are taking inspiration from Warframe and First Descendant, You'll most likely again be able to collect all the blueprints that you want for the weapon that you want, take them to the Lunosmith where you can put them together along with some in-game currency and a wait period, which we all know as the dreadful crafting timer. However, in my opinion, it's a great system. I know a lot of people, it's a hot take, oh my god, we can't craft weapons in 2 seconds, yada yada yada. Listen, when you have a game with a ton of content, and you introduce a system like this where you have to wait for the weapon to get done, I'm 100% okay with it, because there's things for you to do outside of just staring at the crafting window and then burning the game out in 2 seconds. I don't think people understand how important having that crafting window is. Yeah, it's annoying. You grind it 6-7 days, you got, a bunch of gear done. In most cases, it will never take that long, but I get it. It's annoying. You want this weapon right now, but think about it. In the 3 days that you may have to wait for a weapon, which again, it's probably not going to take that long, but we've seen worse, right? And the couple of hours that it might take to craft that weapon, you can go and do dungeons, boss fights, level a completely different character, level a completely different weapon. While you're waiting on this, you can farm out different mods. There's things for you to do. That enhances that replayability. That's why I'm okay with these systems, because it isn't a, oh, hey, you can't have the weapon unless you pay for it. It's a, once you grind this out, go ahead and put it in the crafting, wait, go do something else. Not pick it up immediately after you went and put all the blueprints together, level it up, and then complain about the game not having any content. I get it, it's arbitrary, it seems like it's aggressive, oh, we don't want you to use it. No, trust me, this is a good system, and it's only going to mean good for the future, because as they introduce more weapons, players are slowly going to fall behind collectively, because not everyone is going to craft everything, which means whenever they come back to the game, there's always going to be things to craft and things to do. That is huge for replayability and huge for longevity. That's why these systems are good this way. I'm all for it. Now, in addition to the weapon crafting system, I bet you didn't think that there was going to be a mod system, did you? However, there is. Let's go over it. So, this mod system is known as the non-RNG mod system. For Duet Night Abyss, it is also going to have a mod system. This mod system will allow you to take your characters and apply major stat increases to the character of choice. These mods are known as demon wedges and apply to both weapons and characters. They also come with affixes, meaning that you can match a certain wedge to the correct affix to reduce the overall cost, allowing you to be able to add more wedges, which in turn will make both your character and your weapons more powerful. These wedges are also not weapon or character locked, meaning you can use all the wedges you have across all aspects of the game. I will say, however, that the only restrictions that I do know of, which are kind of general restrictions, are obviously weapon and class specific wedges and skill specific wedges, if we get skill specific wedges. And these are, by the way, what I mean when you say endless diversity, or possibly having wedges that are going to lock you in place. Now, they haven't spoken about those at all, because I don't think those are actually going to come. But what we do know is that we're going to get a ton of different kinds of wedges that are going to increase your skill range, your health on your character, your defenses. There's just going to be a lot of diversity that you can have on your character. If everybody wants to run the same character, for example, Truffle, everybody can run the same character. But you could legitimately have a Truffle that's built as an HP tank. You could have another one that's built for full DPS as a glass cannon. You could have another one that's built for maximum range for CC and AoE control. You could have another one that's built on pure speed to make it to mechanics faster. That's the kind of system that you want in games like this, because everybody can play their own way. And even though we know there's going to be a meta, because let's face it, no matter what you do, people are going to flock to the character that they find most efficient at doing certain things, and that's going to generate a meta. People are still going to be able to find off meta things that are still going to perform extremely well in certain niche situations, which allows for a lot of crafting, diversity, and honestly just replayability again for these players. And as they introduce more characters, more story zones, more side missions, more weapons, it's only going to get better and more bloated at the end game. And I will always say, I would much rather have a bloated end game than a bloated story, but it seems like they're doing both. So I got nothing to complain about. For me, the future of Duet Night Abyss looks very bright, and I'm extremely excited for whatever they got planned. So as I've said before, the closed beta test is apparently launching on the 20th, and I'm here for it. I'm ready. So without further ado, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys subscribe if you want more news on Duet Night Abyss, as well as Throne and Liberty, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.